Everyone expected her to be a spectator for life, just a girl in a chair watching from the sidelines. But when 16-year-old Lena rolled into the arena to face a massive, misunderstood stallion named Haven, no one imagined the quiet miracle that would unfold. What followed wasn't just a ride, it was a moment that rewrote what healing, trust, and courage truly look like. The dust clung to the air like a held breath as the gates to the County Equine Expo creaked open. Families filtered in, kids bouncing in boots too big for their feet, ranchers sipping coffee from styrofoam cups, trainers chatting with the guarded ease of old rivals. But at the far end of the field, tucked in a quiet corral away from the gleaming show horses and their polished riders, stood a horse no one approached. He was massive, stone gray and broad-shouldered, a beast cut from thunderclouds. Muscles rippled under a coat, dulled by time and tension. His mane hung uneven, ragged in places like it had been torn more than trimmed, and he didn't move. Not a twitch, not a flick. Haven stood rooted, eyes hollow, as if the world had long since stopped mattering. "That's the one," someone whispered. "The one from the abandoned ranch in Wyoming. Did you hear? Took down 2 handlers last month. Won't take a bit, won't touch hay unless no one's watching." A boy pressed too close to the rails. His mother yanked him back with a hissed warning. "He's not safe." Trainers passed by with quiet nods, some with narrowed eyes, others with pity. Haven had become a story, a warning, a question no one wanted to answer. They said his former owner tried to break him with force. They said the stallion had seen things that shut him down from the inside out. The metal sign nailed to his enclosure read simply, "Haven, not for display, observe only." But one girl didn't flinch. Lena sat near the edge of the crowd, wheels locked beneath her chair, a flannel blanket tucked across her lap. Despite the heat, she said nothing, watched everything. Her eyes followed Haven like she'd already memorized the lines of his ribs, the way his ears never quite pointed anywhere, how even his stillness felt like a scream. She didn't lean in, didn't whisper to her mother, didn't reach for her phone like the others. She just looked, and something about her gaze, steady, unsentimental, unblinking, felt different. Not curious, not cautious, almost familiar. Haven turned his head once, slow as dusk, just a glance. His ears flicked back, then forward, then still again. The moment lasted maybe 2 seconds, but in the space between them, between the scars in his silence and the calm behind her eyes, something passed like a whisper in the dust. Nobody noticed, nobody cared. Not yet. Before the wheels there were boots, dust-caked, sun-faded, lived-in boots that hit the earth like war drums every time Lena charged into the barrel run. She was a blur of motion back then, tight braids, loud laughter, denim stiff from practice runs and sweat. People remembered her not just because she was fast, but because she rode like the horse wasn't under her, it was part of her. Her mare's name was Daisy, not the kind of name you'd expect for a fireball with hooves, but Daisy was all heart and muscle, and Lena was the only one who could keep up with her. The two of them had taken state twice before Lena turned 15. Rodeo dust was the smell of home. Saddles, rope burns, late-night trail rides under a bruised purple sky. That was life, until it wasn't. The crash wasn't her fault. A blue pickup with a blown tire crossed the center line on an old county road. Her mother had screamed. The sound of twisting metal came next, louder than thought, and then, quiet. Lena woke up 2 days later in a hospital bed she couldn't feel beneath her waist. The doctors said, T12 complete, and her world ended in a language she didn't understand. No more barrel runs, no more rodeos, no more Daisy. She didn't cry much. That part surprised everyone. She just stopped talking about horses. They sold Daisy 6 weeks later to a family outside Laramie. Lena never asked where, didn't want to know. She never looked at saddles again, stopped going outside when the neighbors' horses came near the fence. Her room filled with books, headphones, sketch pads, anything but boots. She didn't hate horses. That was the cruelest part. She loved them too much. It hurt too much. Her mother tried. Of course she did. Weekend outings, therapy, art classes, even equine rehab sessions. Lena would sit there with her arms folded while the therapist coaxed her to just pet the pony. She'd smile politely, nod once, and wait for it to be over. Until this morning, her mom had begged her to come. You don't have to ride, just be near the life again. Lena had sighed. She didn't argue. She didn't want to hurt her anymore, but she hadn't expected him. The gray stallion in the corner, withdrawn, unreachable, ghosted over like a house too long abandoned. Now Lena sat near the fence, watching Haven as if trying to remember something that had been taken, not lost but ripped away, and for the first time in 2 years, she didn't look away. Lena hadn't said more than 5 words the whole drive. Her mother filled the silence with soft conversation, half-hopes strung like fairy lights in the air between them. "You used to love the expo," she said at one point, her voice careful, like a hand reaching out without touching. "Just a quick walk-through. No pressure." Lena nodded once, eyes on the window. The world outside rolled by, fence lines, pasture, rusted mailboxes. None of it registered. Not really. At the gates, the familiar sounds came rushing back. Hooves on hard-packed dirt, announcers crackling through old speakers, children laughing, horses snorting in impatience. It should have been comforting. It wasn't. Lena wheeled slowly behind her mother, keeping to the edge of the crowd. Her flannel sleeves were pulled down past her wrists despite the heat, her shoulders tucked in. A trainer leading a sleek palomino glanced at her, then away too quickly. Lena pretended not to notice. They passed booths, barns, shaded pens. Names she once knew, feed brands, saddle makers, rodeo clubs, blurred together. Lena kept her face still, unreadable. Her mother kept glancing over, smiling too much. "That's the same booth that sold your first barrel saddle," she said gently. Lena nodded. Didn't stop. It wasn't working. Her mom meant well. She always did. But joy wasn't something you could force back in through a ticket gate. The noise, the color, the smell of hay and leather. It all felt like looking through a window into a life that no longer belonged to her. Then they turned the corner of the main barn, and there he was. At first Lena didn't register the horse, just a motionless shape in the shadows. A sign that read, "Observe only." No name, no ribbons, no crowd. But then he moved, barely, and the light caught his eyes. Hollow, gray, unreadable eyes, and they were looking at her. Lena stopped so suddenly her mother nearly stumbled. "Lena," she didn't answer, just stared. The stallion didn't blink, didn't paw the ground or twitch his ears like the others. He just stood, like her, still, present, but distant. And in that awful aching stillness, Lena saw something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Recognition. Not pity, not beauty, not nostalgia, but a quiet, broken sameness. Her mother followed her gaze, then sighed. "He's not part of the show, just here for rehab. Untrainable," they said. "Keeps to himself." Lena didn't move, didn't speak. Across the dust, the horse tilted his head, and something passed between them. Not loud, not clear, just a flicker, like a match in a dark room. Brief, barely there. But Lena felt it. Deep. She didn't know his story, didn't know his name. But for the first time since the crash, she wanted to. "I'm telling you, it's a mistake," one of the trainers snapped, voice sharp, under the low murmur of the stables. "That horse shouldn't be here." 2 others stood nearby, arms folded, boots caked in arena dust. Their eyes flicked toward Haven's enclosure like it was a loaded gun left on the counter. The stallion hadn't moved in over an hour, still as stone, tail barely swaying in the breeze. But they didn't trust the stillness. Not anymore. "He's not show material, not even therapy material," another man muttered. "Did you see him flinch when the gate clanged? That horse is wound so tight, he's liable to snap. He spooked a kid last month just walking past the rail," someone else added. "Didn't bite, didn't kick, just bolted like he was back in a wildfire. Took an hour to calm him down." "Well, he's here," said a fourth voice. This one tired final. The event director. "One more controlled demonstration. That's it. Then he's headed back to the holding ranch in Nevada. Back to isolation." The first man shook his head. "He's a ghost already. That'll kill what's left of him. No one wants to see a broken horse flinch in front of a crowd." Another replied. "Especially not some kid in a chair." They didn't know Lena was there. She'd paused near the side of the stable, half in shadow, the buzz of their argument sharp in the cool barn air. Her hands rested on her wheels, fingers frozen. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop. She'd just been drawn closer, like gravity pulling her into something she didn't yet understand. But now she knew. The Stallion Haven wasn't here for healing. He was on borrowed time. One last chance to prove he was worth something before being locked away from the world that had already given up on him. Lena shifted her chair slightly, moving just enough to see him again. He was alone in his pen, head low, breath shallow. From where she sat, he didn't look dangerous, just tired, worn thin, like he'd been carrying something heavy for too long. The trainers kept talking, but Lena didn't hear them anymore. Her eyes were locked on Haven, a horse the world had written off, a soul too broken for ribbons or therapy charts, and without even meaning to, Lena wheeled closer, inch by inch, the way you move towards something wild in the woods, not wanting to scare it off. She didn't know what she was doing. She just knew he shouldn't be alone, not like that, not again, because she'd seen that look before, in the mirror. The words left her mouth before she realized she was saying them. I want to try. The barn went quiet for a half second, like someone had hit pause on the world. Then the noise returned, sharp, surprised, scattered. A woman behind her chuckled under her breath. One of the younger handlers snorted. She what? Lena didn't flinch. She was parked just outside Haven's pen now, the edge of her wheelchair inches from the rail. The Stallion still hadn't moved, but his ears were turned toward her, listening, watching, like he knew. A trainer with sunburned arms and a clipboard approached, his expression twisted somewhere between concern and discomfort. Sweetheart, he said, lowering his voice as if trying not to embarrass her. This horse isn't a petting zoo exhibit. He's barely been handled. Skittish, not safe. Lena looked up at him, steady. I'm not trying to pet him. I just want to be near him. Another man leaned against a post and laughed outright. She want a selfie too? Maybe toss him a sugar cube from her lap? That one stung, but she didn't let it show. Her mother, standing a few paces behind, looked stricken. Lena, maybe just watch from here, okay? Her voice was soft but pleading. You don't need to prove anything. I'm not, Lena said quietly. I just feel like he knows. More laughter, more muttering. Then a voice, low and weathered, cut through it all. Let her. Everyone turned. Mr. Ortiz stood near the tack room door, arms crossed, silver hair tucked under a worn black hat. He didn't move fast these days. His limp was from a fall he didn't talk about. But when he spoke, people listened. She's not asking to ride him, he said. She's asking to be seen. Let her try. But what if, the clipboard trainer started. She knows the risk, Ortiz interrupted. And maybe the rest of you forgot what it looks like when two broken things recognize each other. Lena's throat tightened. She hadn't expected anyone to take her seriously, but Ortiz wasn't looking at her like she was fragile. He was looking at her like he understood. The muttering died down. The laughter disappeared. Lena turned back to Haven. She didn't roll forward yet, didn't reach out. She just waited, eyes on his, and the Stallion, silent, bruised and forgotten, took one step closer. Just one, but it was enough. The gate creaked open with a slow, aching sound that seemed to echo across the entire arena. Dust swirled lazily in the late afternoon light, catching golden in the air. The round pen, empty moments ago, now held two figures, one trembling with silent weight, the other rolling forward with quiet resolve. Lena, her wheels crunched softly over the dirt as she entered, alone, without lead rope or trainer by her side. No helmet, no fanfare, just her. And Haven. The Stallion stood at the far edge of the pen, every muscle tense, like a storm waiting for the wrong sound to break loose. His ears flicked back, then forward. One hoof pawed the ground. His eyes followed her like a warning. The crowd watched from behind the railings, dozens of them now, phones in hand, mouths half open, breath held tight. No one said a word. Lena stopped in the center. She didn't reach for him, didn't speak right away, just rested her hands on her lap and looked. Haven paced, slow, erratic, uncertain, not like the other horses, who'd been trained to parade. This was different. He circled her, head high, snorting through flared nostrils, eyes wide with the panic of memories no one could see. Lena didn't move. Instead, she closed her eyes. I know, she whispered. Not loud, not meant for the crowd, just a thread of sound, spun in stillness. I know what it feels like to be watched, but not seen. The wind moved through the arena. A flag on the fence fluttered once, then stilled. Haven's hooves slowed. The crowd leaned in. Lena opened her eyes. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something deeper, a feeling she hadn't touched in 2 years. Presence. She was here, now, with him, and Haven stopped pacing. He stood just across from her, chest heaving, ribs shifting like tectonic plates under skin. He didn't bolt, didn't rear, just watched. Seconds passed, maybe minutes, then so slowly it felt like a question. Haven stepped forward, one hoof, then another. Lena's breath caught, but she didn't flinch, she didn't reach, she didn't command, she simply was. Haven walked the final steps, towering over her now, close enough for dust to fall from his mane into her lap. Then, he lowered his head, inch by inch trembling, until his soft muzzle came to rest gently across her legs, and the crowd, so breathless before, didn't dare exhale. Not yet, because what they had just witnessed wasn't training, it was trust. By morning, the whispers had grown into something louder. They moved through the barns, along the walkways, into folding chairs and vendor lines. Did you see it? That girl in the chair. What was his name? Haven? He knelt. Swear to God he knelt. No one knew exactly what it meant, but everyone felt it. By noon, the stands were full. The arena, usually half empty for the early routines, pulsed with a hush that didn't match the hour. Even the announcer's voice dipped low when he said her name. Lena Price. She wasn't behind the gate yet. Somewhere beyond the holding fence, hidden from the buzz, she waited. Mr. Ortiz stood beside her, one hand on Haven's halter, the other steadying Lena as volunteers lifted her gently from the chair. No saddle, no stirrups, just a soft blanket over the stallion's back, and an old vaulting strap for balance. Still want to do this? Ortiz asked, voice quiet. Lena nodded once. He didn't ask again. With practiced care they eased her up. Haven didn't move, not a twitch. He stood rock still, his head slightly turned, ears tuned to every breath she took. Once she was secure, Ortiz stepped back, the gate opened, and the world went still. The music began low, a soft instrumental track someone had chosen last minute. Nothing dramatic, just notes that carried like wind through the trees. Lena didn't hold reins. She didn't cue with her heels or tug at his mane. She sat upright, composed, eyes forward, and Haven moved. Not rushed, not perfect, but purposeful. One step, then another. He walked the arena's edge like it was sacred ground, each huffle matching Lena's breath, her subtle shifts of balance. It wasn't trained choreography, it was intuition, connection, a language no one else could hear. The crowd didn't cheer, not yet. They watched. A girl who couldn't walk, riding a stallion no one could reach. Together, she leaned slightly left, and he adjusted. She exhaled, and he slowed. At the halfway mark, she closed her eyes, just for a second, and Haven paused, just long enough to let the silence bloom, then continued. By the time they reached the center, the arena had forgotten what applause even was. The noise in people's throats turned into lumps, their eyes damp without realizing. Lena laid one hand on Haven's neck. He stopped, lowered his head. Not a bow, not a trick, just stillness. With her, she didn't need a saddle to ride him. She never had. And in that moment, neither of them needed words to be understood. The arena held its breath. Every eye was on them. Lena, perched carefully atop Haven's broad back, and the towering gray stallion beneath her, moving as if the dust itself parted for them. There was no whip, no bit, no saddle, just quiet harmony, step after steady step. Lena didn't perform, she didn't wave, didn't pose, she didn't need to, she simply was, and Haven responded like he'd been waiting his whole life to follow someone who didn't ask him to be anything but himself. The music floated through the speakers, a slow piano melody that wrapped around them like wind. Haven's hooves moved in rhythm, soft and deliberate. Lena's body tilted with each stride, not rigid, not rehearsed, just attuned, as if every breath she took echoed down into his bones. They made wide, sweeping arcs along the fence line, then tighter turns, a quiet spiral toward the arena's center. Lena didn't speak, didn't cue. Her hands rested softly on the vaulting strap, but they weren't what guided him. It was something else, something wordless, that lived in the space between trust and instinct. And then came the moment. Near the far end of the ring, Lena leaned forward, not dramatically, not for show, just gently, slowly, with purpose. She pressed her cheek against Haven's neck, her fingers threaded into his coarse mane, her eyes closed. The crowd held still. Haven stopped, not out of confusion, not fear, but reverence. He exhaled, a long, low breath that stirred dust at their feet, and then, unprompted, untrained, he turned his head, reached back, and nuzzled her side, with the kind of tenderness you'd never expect from something so massive, so misunderstood. It wasn't a trick, it was a thank you, a moment of understanding between two beings who knew what it was to be broken, to be doubted, to be discarded, and to still choose connection. Gasps filled the arena, then sniffles, then silence again, not the heavy kind. This was softer, reverent, holy. A little boy in the front row started crying. His mother pulled him close, but didn't hush him, because everyone else was crying too. The ride continued for another minute, but it didn't need to. The moment had already happened. When they reached the center again, Haven stopped without cue. Lena looked up, and the crowd, unable to hold it back any longer, rose to their feet. The applause wasn't loud, it was deep, the kind that shakes you, not because of volume, but because you know you've seen something you'll carry with you forever. Lena didn't wave, she didn't bow, she just laid her hand gently against Haven's neck and let her tears fall quietly into his mane. He didn't move, because in that stillness they had already said everything. The first video went up that night, just a blurry handheld phone clip uploaded by someone in the third row. No filters, no edits, just raw, shaky footage of a paralyzed girl riding a gray giant who once wouldn't let anyone near him. By morning, it had 500,000 views. By noon, it was everywhere. The girl who tamed a ghost horse, paralyzed teen rides again, with no saddle, no reins, and all heart. Watch Stallion kneels for wheelchair rider in emotional arena moment. Lena didn't notice at first. Her mom had confiscated her phone after the ride, worried it would all be too much. She wasn't wrong, but then Ortiz showed her the headlines. "I thought you'd want to know," he said quietly, scrolling through the dozens of reposts, articles, and stitched-together reactions. TikToks, news anchors, even a morning show from New York. Everyone wanted to talk about the moment, when Haven nuzzled her side, when she pressed her cheek into his mane. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. Lena stared at the screen, her mouth slightly open, her name, her face, Haven's silhouette beneath the arena lights. All of it, replayed over and over. They'd turned it into a miracle. But Lena hadn't gone in for a miracle. She'd gone in because it was the first time in 2 years she felt real. And now, it didn't feel real at all. The emails started pouring in that afternoon. Parents of disabled children, equine therapy centers, trainers, reporters, people she hadn't spoken to since the accident. "Your ride gave me hope. My daughter watched it 10 times. Would you consider being a guest speaker? Can we interview you for a docu-series? Can Haven come to our facility?" Lena closed the laptop after the 10th message. Her hands were shaking. It wasn't that she wasn't grateful. She was. Somewhere under the noise, she understood the power of what had happened. But it hadn't been a performance. It hadn't been a campaign. It had been hers. And now it felt like it was being taken, twisted into something shinier and louder. Ortiz sat beside her on a hay bale, quiet. He didn't push. After a while, Lena whispered, "I didn't mean for this to happen." "I know," he said. "I just wanted to feel it again," she added. "What it's like to be with a horse. Not watched, not clapped for, just seen." Ortiz nodded. "You were." Lena looked down at her lap, at the faint specks of dust still clinging to her jeans from the ride. "I didn't do anything special," she murmured. "That's what made it special," Ortiz said. And for a moment, the noise of the world faded. Just long enough for Lena to breathe. The praise didn't last long. At first, it was small, a comment buried in the feed, a whispered question at the feed store. Then it grew louder. "Pretty moment, but let's be real. Someone trained that horse off camera. No way that girl rode alone. She was clearly being held in place. This was staged, a publicity stunt." Lena scrolled through them one night, the glow of her phone lighting up her face in the dark. Her jaw clenched tighter with each accusation. She had turned off most notifications, but the doubt still found her. Emails, reaction videos, online forums dissecting every step Haven had taken. A slow shame crept in where pride had been, not because she believed them, but because maybe she understood why they thought that way. She didn't look like a miracle. She looked like a girl in a wheelchair with no reins, no training certifications, no slick YouTube channel explaining how she'd done it. Just a moment, and maybe that wasn't enough. By the end of the week, Lena had stopped opening messages. The noise was too much, the praise too performative, the criticism too cruel. She didn't go back to the barn, not even to see Haven. The weight of so many eyes, believing and doubting, pressed against her ribs until it felt hard to breathe. Her mother tried to talk, so did Ortiz, but Lena had built walls fast, walls she remembered how to build from the first time her world had gone quiet after the accident, until the letter came. It arrived in a plain white envelope, postmarked from Idaho, no return name, just a looping, uneven scrawl. Lena opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sheet of lined notebook paper, written in blue marker. The handwriting was wobbly, like the letters had been wrestled into place. It read, "Hi Lena, my name is Ruby, and I'm 9. I saw you and the horse, and I cried a lot, but in a good way. I use a walker, and sometimes kids laugh, and I wanted to quit school and not talk to anybody, but then I saw you with that big horse, and you were brave and soft at the same time. It made me feel like maybe I can be brave too. Thank you for not giving up. Love, Ruby." There was a crayon drawing at the bottom, a girl with curly hair, and a stick horse. Lena stared at the page until the words blurred. She didn't respond that night. She didn't need to. She just got dressed the next morning, wheeled herself to the barn, and whispered the words out loud to the only one who would understand. "I think we helped someone, Haven." And when the stallion stepped closer and pressed his head against her shoulder, she believed it. The rehab center didn't look like much, just a small stable on the edge of town, 2 worn paddocks, and a whitewashed barn that had seen better years. But Lena didn't care about the chipped paint or the lopsided sign that read Hope Hooves. She was here because they had asked, not for a show, not for a video, but for a moment. The coordinator, a soft-spoken woman named Elaine, met her by the trailer with nervous hands and tear-glassed eyes. "They've all seen the video," she said, voice catching. "They know your name." And his Lena nodded and looked toward the children gathered in the grass, some in wheelchairs, others in walkers or braces. A few stood off to the side, wide-eyed, uncertain. She recognized that look, the one that whispered, "Don't expect too much." Haven stepped off the ramp slowly, his hooves making a soft thud in the dirt. No lead rope, no handlers, just Lena, already in the chair, already watching his every move. He didn't spook, didn't resist. He moved beside her like he always did now, silent, alert, as if the world existed in whatever space she carved for him. The children gasped. He was enormous, but Haven didn't puff or pose. He lowered his head, ears forward, calm. Lena wheeled toward the first child, a boy named Thomas, who had one leg in a bright blue cast, and a face that hadn't cracked a smile since they'd arrived. She didn't speak, just let Haven step closer. The stallion sniffed the boy's hand once, then, gentler than anyone thought possible, pressed his nose to Thomas's knee. Thomas didn't flinch. He smiled. The next child was nonverbal. The one after that had burned scars along her arms. One by one, Lena guided Haven to each of them, and each time something holy happened. The stallion didn't rush, didn't startle. He seemed to know how to slow his breath, how to move without fear, how to pause long enough for the children to believe they were safe. Lena didn't speak much. She didn't need to. She was watching, breathing, translating the quiet between Haven's steps and the way the children began to lean forward without being told. They trusted him, because Haven trusted her, and in that sacred loop of belief, something clicked. This wasn't just about the ride anymore, not about the applause or the stories. This was about offering something, a stillness in motion, a kind of peace that walked beside you, not to fix you, not to carry you, but to say, "I'm here, just as I am, and so are you." At the end of the session, one little girl clung to Haven's mane and whispered, "I want to be strong like him." Lena smiled, eyes burning. "You already are," she said, and for the first time she meant it. The sun hung low, spilling gold across the arena, like melted honey. The dust, untouched by hooves all day, floated lazily in the quiet, catching the light in soft spirals. The bleachers were empty now, the banners taken down. No murmurs, no phones, just stillness. Lena wheeled herself through the gate without a sound. Haven was already waiting. He stood near the far rail, his coat silvering in the light, mane lifting slightly in the evening breeze. He didn't call out or stomp. He simply watched her cross the ring like he always did, like she was the only thing that mattered in the wide open world. Lena stopped in the center, the same patch of ground where, weeks ago, she'd first felt the eyes of strangers heavy on her back, where the dust had caught in her throat, and her own heart had asked, "Can you really do this?" Now, it was just hers. She rolled closer. Haven met her halfway. Neither rushed. There was no need. She reached up and laid her hand against his neck, fingers tracing the thick strands of his mane. He was warm, grounded, familiar in a way nothing else had been since the crash. Lena leaned forward, forehead resting just beneath his jaw. "Thank you," she whispered. Not for the ride, not for the applause, for the return to herself, to feeling, to belonging. She pulled back slowly, looking up into those deep, storm-colored eyes. Haven didn't move. Then, without cue or command, the stallion shifted, his front knees bent, his back legs folded beneath him, and with the patience of a giant laying down beside something sacred, Haven sank to the earth, right next to her, not bowing, just being. Dust lifted gently as he settled, a slow exhale rumbling through his chest. Lena didn't speak. She didn't have to. She stayed there, one hand resting on his shoulder, the other in her lap. As the sun slipped lower behind the trees, shadows stretched long across the arena floor. Birds called from the fence posts. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't viral, but it was everything. No trainers, no cameras, no headlines. Just a girl who had lost the rhythm of her life and a horse the world had tried to forget, choosing in the quietest way to stay together. And maybe the world would call it a miracle. Maybe they'd remember the kneeling horse and the girl in the chair. But Lena, she would remember this moment, not because of what it looked like, but because for the first time in a long time, she knew exactly where she was, not performing, not proving, just home. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe for more real and powerful moments like this. Tell us in the comments, have you ever felt a connection that changed everything?